Back in 1993, I was working for BHP and I went on a study tour to the USA. And after 5 weeks, we concluded that the only way to change the culture of a business and lift performance was really to start again with a greenfield site. Or maybe you were lucky enough to have a crisis which legitimised and forced change. Getting people to change the way they work is the hardest thing that you'll ever do as a leader. And most attempts to change the culture of a business fail. In fact, 75% of all transformation programs fail. 30 years on from that time, I know there's things that you can do to build the culture that you need and want. And that's what we're going to focus on this morning. What are the practical things that you can do to build a high performance business? My aim is that you walk away with a couple of ideas that you can start immediately. We're going to move through the content pretty quickly, but Amy's going to distribute at the end of the session a 3-page checklist which covers all the material that I'm going through today. Now, our research indicates that the business that navigated the past year and the virus more successfully took specific action. What's surprising is it's exactly the same action that made businesses successful before the pandemic, and what we believe will continue to be the pathway to your success into the future. You see, this pandemic's only accelerated what's already been happening. We're in an amplified change environment, but it's not the change that's a problem, it's a lack of certainty that makes our world so challenging. It's an environment of very low predictability. You simply don't know how things are going to turn out. And this image here of the Deepwater Horizon has come to represent the current landscape that we all face. And I'm sure you know the term VUCA, which stands for a volatile, uncertain, and complex environment. And what the last 2 decades and now COVID has really taught us is that there's no single one right answer when it comes to complex situations. Our problems are far too multifaceted, and the interplay of actions has effects on the outcomes that are totally unpredictable. So in this sense, we're no longer in a complicated world where past action produced predictable outcomes. We're in a fuzzy, complex world. And what that's done, this pace of change, this complexity, has invalidated many of our established practices and processes. They're not fit for purpose anymore. So to be ready for the future, businesses need to quickly translate new and real-time learnings into reimagined ways to serve customers better. Businesses need great organisational flexibility and to constantly reinvent their service delivery. Put bluntly, in these volatile times, the future belongs to the quickest learner, not the one that knows the most. So what will matter is how quickly you can understand your customers, what they value, and use those insights as an input into the design of more meaningful customer experiences. In fact, around the world, there's a mega trend where we're witnessing the substitution of goods and services for experiences. So much so that organisations now compete on customer experience, how you make the customer feel. What we believe is required is what we call the 7 C's of empathy. That's curiosity, courage, care, connection, collaboration, customer centricity. These allow you to understand what your customers value. How have we landed on this point? Well, so much of our lives is automated, but technology still can't build trust. Only humans can, because only humans can demonstrate empathy. So empathy becomes more and more required on those remaining human interactions. And as a leader and as a business, your value resides in those 4 areas that machines can't do. That's helping people to feel understood, helping people to feel valued, helping people to make sense of their complexity, and helping people to define a pathway to a better future. So empathy is a foundation for trust, and people who feel understood are more likely to trust you, and people who trust you are more likely to buy from you or work hard for you or respond positively to change. They're far more likely to be committed to your business and come up with new ways to serve customers. So if that's the environment that we're in, here's the formula that you all need to know for success. This pie chart comes from Tom Peters, and he's shown, and he's proven this from here to next Tuesday, that we're at a point now where people account for 65% of the variance of success. And this holds true for all organisations. 30% of your success comes down to how aligned your people are, how passionate, engaged, committed they are to your mission. 35% comes down to how capable they are, how enabled they are to deliver on your value promise to the market. At best, your strategy represents 15% and your systems and your platforms about 20%. So, okay, of course you've got to have them in place. But they're regarded as threshold domains. And beyond being in place, they play very little role in the success of your business. They're a hygiene factor. So what this means is that all the strategies that businesses initiate in the hope of increasing their competitiveness just does not deliver the same results as investing in your people. Developing your people is the number one mid to long-term profit maximizing strategy available to you. Why? Because 65% of your success comes down to your people. So you've got to know where to focus your efforts. Most businesses that we see overinvest in defining their strategy and setting goals and underinvest in getting alignment to their mission and underinvest in communicating the behaviours that they want their people to be demonstrating. So we need to focus on the bookends of this pyramid. At the bottom is culture, how people do their work. That's the bedrock of your organisation. At the top is your purpose or your mission, your cause, why you exist. And the reality is that nearly any strategy will work if you get the execution right. And getting the execution right comes down to the alignment of your people, how passionate they are, and their ability to get the job done. These two domains are the best predictors of success, particularly in volatile times. So you've got to define your purpose. That explains why some organisations do better than others. It's so fundamental that it seems you can't drive your performance or achieve your goals if you haven't defined your purpose first. Why does that happen? This is really interesting to me anyway, that purpose creates coherence in our work. It fulfills that great urge that we all have, which is to feel that we matter, that we have a purpose. So it creates meaning. It engages stakeholders. It inspires behaviour, which leads to results. So your purpose should be that beacon to guide you in times of complexity and rapid change, but it's a lens through which everything is evaluated. And what we absolutely know is organisations that navigate change and competitive times more successfully are the ones that can adapt their operating model but are driven by their purpose. Then you've got to make sure that everyone's aligned to that purpose, that everyone's pulling in the same direction. We think that alignment's the most urgent workplace issue today. Nothing is more important. Michael Sherlock, he's a professor at the Griffith Business School. He found that after extensive research, the organisations in Australia that flourish in tough competitive times are the ones that are unified, where everyone's working together to fulfil a single purpose. And then the next step is to define your value propositions, your competitive advantage. Many of you will be familiar with this Simon Sinek golden circle model. Your value proposition is your how you deliver your goods and services to the market. Now, I always like to tell the story of Chick-fil-A, and if you haven't heard of Chick-fil-A, they specialise in chicken sandwiches. Look them up. The business produces almost $4 million of revenue per store. It beats the closest competition by over $1.3 million. In fact, the average Chick-fil-A restaurant produces 4 times the revenue of a single KFC store. Now, this is extraordinary when you consider that the quality of their food and the accuracy of fulfilling orders isn't even ranked in the top 3. So how do they do it? They understand what I was saying earlier, that organisations compete on customer experience, how they make the customer feel. They know that 9 out of 10 people will happily pay more for a product for a better experience, and they know that 70% of the purchase decision comes down to how the customer feels they're being treated and nothing to do with the product they're buying. How do they translate that into success? And this is the killer. They're ranked number 1 for smiling, for saying please, and for saying thank you. They create an experience which people value and are willing to pay for. So in this model on the screen here, you see that the red arrow is about finding more and more customers to buy your stuff. But the blue arrow is about managing the customer's experience. And smart businesses like Chick-fil-A are looking for ways to create a better experience. And why is this important? Because when people compare like with like, they'll invariably buy on price. Now, this isn't just theory. There's 4 monetary markers that prove what I'm saying here, and that's share of wallet, word of mouth referrals, repeat purchase behavior, and customer loyalty. And on those 4 monetary markers, the ones that provide a better customer experience blow the others out of the park. So why should customers buy from you each and every time? Well, if you can create that great customer experience, you can create additional value. Now, we've got an audit document to diagnose if you're creating great customer experiences, and I've included this summary slide in the checklist that Amy's going to distribute. But in its simplest form, you need to make sure that you're captivating and delighting your customers, that you've got a compelling case that differentiates you from your competitors, that you're building deep connections, relationships with your customers, and you've got to make it easy for them to buy from you. So once we've got all that in place, you then got to get the culture right to deliver that value proposition, to create that great customer experience. In this case, culture is much more important than strategy. Sure, the culture defines your direction. Sorry, the strategy defines your direction, but your culture is how you execute that strategy. And a strong culture will always overcome a poor strategy. Your culture is how you do things, what's acceptable, what's not. It's how your people behave, and it's shaped by the worst behavior that you are willing to tolerate. In this sense, culture is your collective capacity to create value. I like to use the image of a fish tank here as a metaphor for culture. And if the rocks and the shrubs are your systems and your platforms, and the fish are your people, and the tank is the organization itself, then the water is the culture. And here the water determines whether the organization can flourish. It determines how things are done. It colors everything. So you need to define those behaviors that are correlated with high performance for your business. It's not some marketing exercise. In fact, every organization, irrespective of their size, their industry, their maturity, their ambition, needs to define those behaviors that you want your people to demonstrate day in, day out, what we call frequently and consistently, because they are what we call your performance signatures. In the checklist that Amy's going to distribute, I've included the questions that we ask that will help you to define your performance signatures, and then you need to communicate those to your people, to your teams. What we do know though, and this is important for everyone, particularly in times of high complexity and volatility, that the cultural characteristic that's most highly correlated with success or high performance is adaptability. And Charles Darwin was right when he said it's not the strongest, it's not the smartest, it's not the biggest that flourish, it's those that are able to adapt more easily to changes in the environment. We define adaptability as being able to move quickly towards opportunities or to move away from threats. And the reality is that most organizations are nowhere near as agile or as flexible as they need to be. But in this accelerated world, it's no longer sustainable to be a fast follower. Adaptability has got to be a core organizational skill. Likewise, accountability, it's got to be one of your performance signatures. Successful businesses are driven by a series of commitments that people make to each other and then deliver on. So you need to ensure that adaptability, that accountability, that alignment, which we spoke about before, is part of your culture, part of your DNA. Just a couple of words on driving engagement. It's so critical now with the heightened uncertainty of COVID-19 But I say that the pandemic's only accelerated what was already happening. In fact, over the past few years, and this is quite frightening, effective leadership has emerged as the key driver determining people's engagement. 70% of engagement comes down to an employee's relationship with their boss. It's why we say people don't leave a business, they leave their boss. And in Australia, most people are simply turning up. They're displaying all the hallmarks of what we call low discretionary effort. Essentially, they've checked out and they're just doing enough to fulfill their job. But there's an upside. There's a 10-6-2 rule. So you should think about this rule, a 10-6-2 rule that says for every 10% improvement that you can get in engagement, workers increase their efforts by 6%, and this leads to a 2% improvement in performance. And what does this look like? Employees will speak positively about your business. They've got a psychological connection to it. They're your true believers. They'll go the extra mile for your business. They'll display greater discretionary effort. They'll want to stay with your business because they're emotionally committed to it. What does that all translate to? They constantly look for ways to do their job better. Now, just imagine if every person that works in the business came to work every day and said, how can I do my job better? That's what transformation is about. And what that looks like is that they're constantly looking for ways to increase revenue or decrease costs. So just lastly here, how can you drive engagement? These 5 pillars are gold. The organisations that can execute these 5 pillars are 4 times more likely to have highly engaged employees. The sorts of employees that overachieve, that surpass your expectations. The first one is give people a chance to share their views. I said before, our deepest urge is to feel that we matter. And employees that don't feel valued rarely make a valuable contribution. So you've got to give them an opportunity to share their views and opinions with you. You've got to validate them, make them feel valued. The second one is share the direction of the business. It's frightening, only 44% of workers feel that their leaders are effective. People want clarity from their leaders about where the business is headed. Provide feedback. This is perhaps the most effective lever that you can pull. Feedback on how people have been performing and feedback on what you need them to do differently. It's about setting clear expectations. The fourth one is explain the link between the work people do and success. Now, this is absolutely critical and it's your biggest challenge. You need to make everyone feel that the work they do makes a difference to the success of your business. Your role is to let people know that their work is vital. The fifth one here is talk about your value propositions. If employees don't know what's great about your business, there's no way that the market's going to know. And organisations with great engagement constantly talk about their value propositions. Underpinning these 5 values, and I've got it there on the screen, is learning and development. People need to feel that they're growing, they're learning, they're developing. Not feeling that way is the #1 reason in Australia today for low morale. So you need to take responsibility for helping people to feel more capable. 35% of your success depends on it. Now, why this lighthouse to finish? It's a great story. Between 1854 and 1879, there were 50,000 British shipwrecks, 50,000 British shipwrecks in a period of 25 years. The ancestors of the writer Robert Louis Stevenson said they were going to do something about it, and they built 97 lighthouses off the Scottish coastline. This is the most remarkable one. This is Muggle Flugger. It was built in 1857. It's a building of sheer bloody-mindedness. It's on the edge of a vast emptiness. I've been there. I took this photo. What's important here is there was no strategic plan. This is a story of purpose, of alignment, of adaptability and accountability born out of engagement and duty to the customer. 95% of your success is not the quality of your strategy, but the quality of the execution. And this comes down to people knowing what they have to do, being committed to their purpose, and being able to adapt to the changes happening around them. Thanks, everyone.